I am so loving this podcast that we have started. And this week is not going to be anything but superstar as we are really getting our podcast dialed in. We have Laura Mckenna. And in this episode, you get an opportunity, if you didn't get to the live show that we had in the month of September, at the end of the month, and make sure if you haven't had an opportunity to get into the Fresh Inspiration Show, Mindset Transformation Entertainment, and that's in the Facebook group, but it's public. And if you want to come in and check out the shows, there's ample of information to find out what's happening this year, next year. We're always planning ahead as we are venturing into bringing these fabulous people in to be able to support you in the mindset transformation entertainment. So make sure you're in the group, because on the live shows you can comment, you can get that transformation that you're looking for. And what I love about this show is when I started it a few years ago, and we just went into podcast, as you'll see, we're probably on our 12th or 13th one, is that I'm learning how to really pull out the stuff that you haven't seen about this person anywhere else. And it could be because they've been hiding a bit from some of the things that they're going to be talking about, or they're going to tell their story differently. And I find that's one of the things that we're really good at here, is holding space for everybody to keep growing and growing. And I feel like, and please, I'd love to hear comments. If you're catching this on iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, if you caught it on our website, wherever you caught this information, I would love to hear what you're thinking as you're watching on YouTube also, or you're listening to the podcast, how you're feeling about what we're bringing to you. Now, Laura Mckenna, who's in this for this podcast, you're going to really enjoy her. She lives over in the New York area, and she really shares a lot about how she believed that she had to have a lot of toughness and struggle and fight in her life to be able to do anything that she thought was worth something. She thought if she used to think if she didn't work hard at it, then it really was not anything that was something that she felt very proud of. And through her learning journey, she's acknowledged that she used to feel this way, and how much that stress-induced attitude truly affected how she did anything, to how she now gets to show up and be at ease and let the flow happen. You're going to love this if you really enjoy having people share with you how they diagnose certain things when it comes to, bringing your stuff to the lab, so that they, this is what Laura Mckenna does, is so she can know exactly what you're dealing with. Now, with her figuring that out, she can help with being able to tell you what kind of supplements, what kind of food, because she comes in at her health food angle, or her health coaching angle, to really help you feel powerful in your process. You're going to love her. She's a very fun person. And right away she starts in with symptoms, and she starts talking about what symptoms mean. So really enjoy that part, because I think you're going to be very surprised on what Laura feels about what these symptoms mean for us. And I think it'll be powerful for you in leveling up on your health and wellness. But enjoy this podcast with Laura Mckenna. Have an insightful day.
Welcome to the Fresh Inspiration Show with founder and host Rhonda Liebig, energy revitalizer and mindset freedom coach, and #1 best-selling author. We are here to freshly inspire you, uplift you, and transform you with our unique mindset transformation entertainment show. Get ready as we kick it into high gear arousing your motivation in lifestyle, vitality, and business. But before we walk through the threshold and start the Fresh Inspiration Show, take a deep breath. Check in. What is your level of belief in you to conquer this new world? And then do yourself a favor. Before you exit our show, ask yourself, what is your level of transformation? Because we know if you believe it, you can achieve it. And that's why the biggest, best, and boldest inspirers are here for you right now. Buckle up. Yeah, you've got this.
Fresh inspiration. Fresh inspiration. Fresh inspiration. Fresh inspiration.
Welcome in, Laura. Welcome
Thank
in.
you.
I'm used to a live audience. This is my
Yeah.
captain. And Christy was playing too. Thank you, Christy, for clapping.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, Laura, so please share, my friend. I know you're ready to get going here. Please share with
Yeah.
us.
So if we were in a live audience session, I would ask people to just close their eyes. So if you're live and you want to just, as you're listening and you're sitting, just close your eyes for a moment and just feel or connect with the symptoms that I am describing. Exhaustion, sadness, constipation, lethargy and ennui, bloating, chronic UTIs, chronic pain, interstitial cystitis, trouble sleeping, overwhelm and anxiety, abdominal pain, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, moodiness, irritability on the level of personality hijack, hormone imbalance, existential angst, headaches. Someone shared earlier, shingles, eczema. And you can open your eyes, as I'm listing these out, this is metabolic chaos. That it's the dysfunctional state when stress in your life and your body cause symptoms, and sometimes even a list of symptoms that seem to be unrelated, but are definitely frustrating and maybe even have you to a place of just hopelessness and despair. And maybe you don't feel listened to by providers who are either telling you that you're imagining it or that they're not seeing those issues show up in your lab test results. But you have these things, you know something is wrong, that this may be normal, but that doesn't make it okay. Because you know that optimal is possible. And you know that living with symptoms is not the life that you want for yourself. So I'm so excited to be here today to help you with that and to help you get to the life that you want for yourself. And I acknowledge you could be anywhere right now, and you chose to be here with us. So I thank you for that. I feel honored that I get to share some valuable information with you that can help you to show up in your life as your best, healthiest, most energetic, most authentic self. So I know Rhonda introduced me. I'm Laura Mckenna. I am the founder, owner, and lead coach at Strength and Shield Coaching. I am a West Point graduate. I'm an Afghanistan veteran. I'm a former leadership instructor at West Point. That was my last duty station in the Army before I transitioned to the civilian corporate world. My master's degree is in physiology, exercise physiology, education, and I have a background in leader development. I am an executive clarity coach, and I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. So between what I've experienced in my life, and I want to share just some of my stories with you. I know all of us, our lives are really just a compilation of our stories, just a compilation of what we have experienced. Our lives are not what we have achieved. Our lives are what we have experienced. And I want to share some of those things with you today. So between what I've experienced in my life and then, the certifications and the degrees that I do have, I consider myself a stress expert. And that is why I founded Strength and Shield Coaching. I help achievers to show up in their lives as their best, healthiest, most authentic, most energetic selves. I help achievers to get their lives back. And I do that by looking at the symptoms and then investigating the source of dysfunctional stress in your life or in your lives, like your job, your relationships, past trauma, mental models that are causing stress or causing you to show up or to behave in a way that is not truly aligned with who you are, what you value, what your talents and giftings are, that caused you to live out of alignment with how God created you and what you were created to do, out of alignment with your purpose. And then I help investigate sources of stress in your bodies, inflammation, immune system issues, hormone issues, digestion issues, detoxification issues, neurological issues, and neural health, issues and concerns that are going on. And then I do that by providing inspiration, education, coaching, and I provide community that helps to solve those issues at root cause, at their source, and stop the cycle of let's stop just chasing symptoms, right? So let's stop treating symptoms and start building health. And that's how we transform stress into success. So I believe optimal is possible. Health, peace, productivity, purpose, alignment, authenticity, energy, all of this is possible, and it's possible at the same time. And I want to share with you a couple of stories from my life, because over the course of my life, I have experienced a number of highly stressful events. Like if you look at the list of things that are most stressful, I've experienced a number of them. So job changes, being in jobs that weren't a right fit for me, toxic bosses, relocation. In my 42 years on earth, I have relocated 25 times. And I call that, if I moved my kitchen from one space to another space, that was a relocation. So like when I was stationed in Korea, I moved 3 times in the 3 years that I was stationed there. I moved from an apartment to another apartment on post and then back to an apartment off post. So those 3 count as, the 3 relocations, even though it was just one permanent change of station or PCS move to Korea and then back from Korea. So relocations, custody suits, divorce, sexual assault, and then military deployments. So when I describe myself as a stress expert, it is as much from personal experience as it is from my, certifications or formal level of expertise. So stress affected my mental models. It affected my decisions. It affected my relationships. It affected my behavior. And it absolutely affected my joy. So when I say stress, as I shared earlier, I'm not talking about the positive, challenging, invigorating, aligned, growth-inducing stress. I'm talking about dysfunctional, toxic, chronic stress. So for me and for many of us out there, stress led to imbalance in my body, which led to symptoms and disease. So as a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, I call this dysfunctional state of stress, imbalance, and subsequent illness metabolic chaos. So when I was a first-year cadet at West Point, I was sexually assaulted. And given just the stress, it's designed to be stressful. And I want to be clear, that experience is not consistent with the values on which the military academy is founded. So it is not representative of West Point, but it is part of my experience. And given the chronic stress that I was under during that first year, I did not have a menstrual period for 13 months. And by the middle of second semester of that year, I weighed less than 100 pounds. So decidedly not healthy. And in hindsight, and this is after years of doing the hard work of self-awareness, Christy talked about, as she opened and shared this morning, doing that deep emotional work. We all need to do that. We owe it to ourselves to look at our families of origin and just our experiences. What are the things that we learned were normal? What were the ways in which our subconscious was programmed, or what are the ways in which we were conditioned? What are the major life events or the impactful events? What are the traumas, in my case, given what I'm describing right now, what are the traumas that shaped our mental models? And in this case, after doing that work, that deep dive of self-awareness, I realized that I was operating under a false mental model. And that false mental model was that violation was the price I had to pay to achieve an outcome or to achieve goals. So there was a transaction, what I believed subconsciously. I want to be very clear. I was not consciously aware. I was not consciously choosing this way of thinking or this way of approaching my life. But I subconsciously believed that there was a transaction necessary with receiving anything I wanted to experience or achieve. Dysfunctional stress was necessary to create the desired outcome. So this included anything from like being mildly irritated, like I would, surround myself with people that, were just mildly irritating, right? Like maybe just not fully aligned. I didn't truly enjoy, being around them. Mild irritation to struggle, to stress, to full-on violations of my boundaries, my values, and in many ways, my sense of self-respect and who I really am. And this mental model had me believing that suffering was a requirement. And again, I'm not talking about growth-inducing, stress that is invigorating and challenging and challenges us to be better. I'm talking about toxic, dysfunctional stress.
Laura, can I hold that
Yeah.
for a moment? I love that. Okay, so I used to be in space like this, and I've heard you speak about this before. Can we talk about that just for a moment?
Yeah, for sure.
Space, and you believe that being in a space of, and tell me if I'm saying it right too, that you believe that being in space and being agitated was a normal thing.
Right.
And I want to add a layer into that, because I used to think like there was not much abundance in my life. I really felt like this was normal life. Like if my skin felt yucky because I was around people, I thought, oh, well, that's what life is. These are the people that are in my life. So when you bring that up, that to me is amazing to say, well, let's take a step back and look at that. Because that's part of showing that you're dealing with some deep stress, and you're not getting a clearing to realize that you would get an opportunity to be making choices of who you're around.
Right. And it was in all sorts of things. Rushing, anxiousness. I mean, like little things, like I was constantly late because I was constantly rushing, because I was constantly over obligating, because I was constantly people pleasing, because I believed that was the price.
Mm-hmm.
That was normal. And so I was sort of in this constant state of anxiousness. Yeah. And honestly, it was pretty miserable. And it kept me from my peace. It kept me from truly connecting with others in intimate relationships, instead of just kind of that superficial, like getting along with everyone, but really having like close, I have, from this period of time in my life, I really have very few close friendships where I let people see, or I really was in a state of like peace and like realness with them.
Oh gosh, so Laura, I want to keep holding this. So this light, not a lot of people talk about it this way. And so when people are going in and saying, oh, it just must be me. Oh, I'm having this problem, and you
go into this state of starting to blame yourself, because the deep undercurrent space, it's like systemically, you really are looking for the piece, and you think, well, I'm the one that has the issue. You can't blame it on somebody else, because we're not going there, but we're really speaking to the fact of there's something that is some chaos.
Yeah.
It goes straight to the metabolic chaos.
Right. Right. And what you're really describing too, I mean, there are two parts to this. One is I take responsibility for myself. I may not have created the mental model, but I am responsible for owning that mental model, changing that mental model, and taking responsibility for the effect of that mental model. And so that's that first part. But then there also is an external part where we can choose our environment. If we want to be optimally ourselves and most authentically ourselves and use our gifts and talents in a way that is aligned, we do also have a responsibility for shaping our environment. And I'll give you just an example of that. When I transitioned from the military, I didn't really think a lot about what I wanted to be doing or what was consistent with my values or what I was truly good at. In the military, I had done so many things. I mean, I was an officer in the Army, and so I've done logistics, I've done operations, I've done personnel management, I've done people leadership. I mean, I've done this, I have this plethora of skills, but that doesn't mean that those are talents. And that doesn't mean that those are giftings where when I'm operating in them, my cup is full and overflowing. And so when I took a job, I didn't really consider, like, what's the culture I want to operate in? What is the work I truly enjoy doing? What am I talented at? What, you know, in what ways has God gifted me with talents? I didn't really consider that. I considered paying my mortgage. Like, what do you want to do when you get out of the Army, Laura? Well, I'd like to still pay my mortgage. And so I just took the job that was going to pay me the most. I didn't really consider any of the other stuff. And so doing that deep dive into my identity, and you know what? I was miserable at that job. I was anxious on the way to work. I would cry on my way home from work. I would hyperventilate in the parking lot. I had to talk myself into the building because it was just not the right environment for me. And that's not to say that it was a toxic environment. It just wasn't the right one for me. I want to be customer facing. I want to be interacting with the person I'm serving. I don't want to sit at the same desk. You put me in a cubicle, I start behaving like a caged animal. Like, it's just not the right space for me. I want autonomy. I want to connect. And so just realizing that through that experience, that's what I mean when I say that, you know, I just wasn't showing up in my life as myself. And that's stressful. That's that existential angst. That's that ennui. That's when you're like, I just feel lethargic and I feel badly about myself because I know I'm not contributing in the best way possible and showing up as myself and using the gifts that I've been given. And that's a detriment both to the people in that environment and also to me. In the Army, I wore a mask and it was tremendously stressful. I was so just driven by people pleasing and just performing. And, you know, and so I just showed up in a way that is not consistent with my values. And I'm embarrassed about some of those things. I was jocular and, you know, I tried to, I mean, I'm very feminine, but I believe you can be both feminine and tough. And I live that every day. But in the military, I didn't feel like that would be accepted. And maybe it would have. Maybe if I showed up as my authentic self, that would have been just fine. And people would have been cool with that. But I didn't, because of that mental model, because of that subconscious programming, I didn't believe that. And so I tried to fit in and like be one of the guys instead of being both feminine and tough. I tried to be jocular and crude and, you know, tough in like a masculine way instead of tough in a strong, powerful, authentic, feminine way. And so that's what I mean by when just being inauthentic and not even realizing it. And that's incredibly stressful. Wearing a mask every day will make you sick, man. It will make you sick. Stress makes you sick. And it absolutely made me sick.
Yeah, and come on, audience, tell me what you're feeling about this. When I was in kindergarten, I really believed that we could choose to be a girl or a boy. And in my life, I knew that being a boy was easier in my family. Like at my grandma's house, around my uncles, that if I was a boy, I didn't get spanked, or I didn't, get yelled at, or I didn't get looked upon a certain way. And so it was Halloween, and my mom's boyfriend was talking about so-and-so, and they said, well, they were a girl, but I knew they were a boy, but they were dressed up as a girl. And I said, oh, I want to wake up tomorrow and I want to be a boy. And then I realized that I couldn't choose that. And it made me sad. So all my life, I lived in this masculine sense and thought that that was the way to show up. So when you were talking about being at a place that's toxic, first thing is I wanted to be masculine because I thought if I do that, then people will listen to me and they'll do exactly what I want them to do. I can control it, like the sense I was in at that moment. And it seemed to really get me sick and not even feel like I was part of anything because nobody enjoyed being around me.
Right. But me either. I was hostile. I was, just I was defensive. Like when you're not yourself, you're not yourself. When you're not yourself, you're not yourself.
Yeah.
And it makes you hard to be around.
Yeah, and Dusty says, I cried daily on the way to and from a job for 12 years.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah.
first of all, Dusty, I feel you, but my gosh, 12 years, that's such a long time to live in that state of sadness and misery and truly not bring your best self. So I really feel for you in that way. So as I'm, thinking about that learning and what a tremendous learning experience that really was. This stress is necessary mental model affected my emotional life, but as I shared, it also made me physically sick. And when I realized that I was essentially living by rules that were false, that that was a lie, and that I could live rested, and that I could experience peace and crush it with my productivity. Like it wasn't, I wanted to live this life of and when I realized that and was possible, like it wasn't peace or achievement, it's achievement with peace, achievement because of peace. It's huge. It's a whole paradigm shift. And it rocked my world, man. And it's part of why I'm on this mission to help achievers be themselves, their healthiest selves, because I know how that feels. And it definitely made me sick. So I had sleep issues. I mean, when I opened this with just that, like feel with me these symptoms, I had so many issues that were like all over the place, man. I mean, they were everywhere. I had sleep issues. I had debilitating fatigue. I would feel lethargic. I had sadness. Like I would just be sad. I felt like I had a lack of purpose. I had piercing abdominal pain. And I had constipation. I mean, like, listen, I'm a gut health expert, man. We're going to talk about poop. Okay, poop is a thing. Like you should, right? Like poop is good. You should have good bowel movements, healthy bowel movements. It's an indicator of your health. So let's just talk about it. Like it's okay. I had back pain. I had chronic pain. God bless my chiropractor who really helped me, get structurally aligned, not just, like philosophically aligned, and aligned in my life, but structurally aligned, and helped me overcome that chronic pain. I had interstitial cystitis, which is an inflammation of the lining of my bladder. I had chronic UTIs, which is also bladder related, but different issues. I experienced severe bloating. I had hormone imbalance. I had low testosterone. Like you don't hear about women having low testosterone. All the low T, commercials that you see out there are dudes in a gym, right? And they're losing their hair and they can't lift as much as they used to. I am a woman who had low testosterone and it wreaked havoc on my hormones. I had PMDD. My menstrual cycles were an absolute nightmare. And I just felt awful. They just didn't feel good. And when you don't feel good, that doesn't feel good. And so it's important to note that I also at this time had healthy habits. Like I've always been very fit, even, as a kid. So I was eating very clean. I was exercising. I have healthy exercise habits. I'm an avid CrossFitter. I was drinking half my body weight in ounces in water. I have a healthy faith life. Like by all accounts, I was doing my part to be well. And I still have these habits, right? But the difference is now they actually make a difference, which is huge, right? And that investigation of what was going on in my mental life, my spiritual life, my emotional life, and my physical body was so important, because even though I was doing my part to be healthy, I still had all these symptoms because stress was making me sick. And the experts are scratching their heads, right? My physicians would say things like, well, your labs all look normal. Maybe what I hadn't progressed to the point on that wellness meter, to the point that they were showing up as markers on what those physicians were looking for or looking at. So I would hear, your labs all look normal. Or my favorite was, you're the healthiest patient I have. And I'm like, good God, if I'm the healthiest patient you have, and I have this constellation of symptoms, what does the rest of society feel like? Like, this is terrible. I feel terrible for those people. So they were willing to prescribe medications or even do a surgery. I had a uterine cancer scare. And I was like 33 years old. And my OBGYN, he was like, listen, if you don't have a uterus, you don't have uterine cancer. And I was like, hold your scalpel, buddy. Like, let's look at what's causing that to occur. And so I just asked him, like, can we wait for a little bit? And I made some significant changes to my lifestyle. I changed my nutrition. I started seeing a chiropractor. Like I went to work on relying on my body's innate intelligence. The cells don't have to be told what to do. God designed our bodies beautifully. Like, we are miraculous creations. The cell doesn't have to be told what to do. So if you just give the cell what it needs to function optimally, it will function optimally. It will do what it's designed to do. And when the cells are doing what they're designed to do, they build the organs that do what organs are designed to do. And when organs are doing what they're designed to do, the systems that the organs make up will do what they're designed to do. And when those systems are functioning the way they're supposed to function, the body as a system of systems will function the way it's supposed to function. And that's how we work to coach down metabolic chaos and coach up optimal health.
So Laura,
going to work at that integrative whole life level.
yeah. So Laura, we were in there in that stress level, huh? So you were saying, to recap, to really get some light in there even more, because this, I feel everything you're saying is so powerful. So you were eating great. You're the best and healthiest that a doctor's ever seen, but they're ready to give medicine. And I feel like that's where I was at 29 also, but I still got on medicine. But you actually took a step back because you had a lot of things that they were saying, well, I'll give you medicine for this. Now there's this going on. Now there's that going on. And all of a sudden they're finding purpose to give medicine. When somebody's in that state and you're coaching them, when they're in that deep stress, where do you go when you know that when you're looking at their diet, you're like, okay, well, on the exterior, you're right. That's why you're coming to me, is that you're not feeling well, but we're not really talking about the food. So you're putting that off to the side. So where do you go in that mental space to be able to support through that mindset area that you're talking about?
Yeah. So a couple of things there, because food does matter. We are all uniquely designed, right? We have biochemical and genetic individuality. So when I do work with a client on what they should be eating, there's no one best diet for everyone. And so I like to do a metabolic typing assessment. so that I can prescribe and design a protocol for a client based on what they uniquely should be eating that will be the best for their body. And food can be so confusing. Like, should I be a vegetarian? Should I be vegan? And aside from the moral or philosophical approach, to eating, I'm talking really just the practical approach to eating. Should I be 40-30-30 macronutrient balance? Should I follow the Mediterranean diet or the heart healthy diet? Or should I be keto? Or should I be paleo? I mean, there's so many different things. And, I bet all of them work for somebody, but not all of them work for everybody. And the reason for that is that biochemical uniqueness. And so actually, it's one of the first steps in our coaching is I'll do an assessment with a client to get a sense of what they specifically should be eating, what proportion of macronutrients, what micronutrients and trace minerals do they maybe need more of, or maybe that they should actually avoid because of their unique genetic and biochemical makeup. So there is that part of it. And that's what I was not doing. When I did the investigation, I realized I really was eating the wrong things for what my body really needed. And that was a cause of metabolic chaos. That was a cause of stress physiologically and in my body. But then as we switch to the mindset side of that, when someone has this constellation of symptoms and they feel frustrated and they start to feel despair, and they don't feel listened to by a practitioner, who I had one physician was like, listen, yeah, you have all these symptoms, but nothing's showing up in your lab. So I'm just going to prescribe you an antidepressant.
Yeah.
But I'm not depressed, dude. I'm like a human golden retriever. Like there's no, right? There's no need for an antidepressant for this person. It was really just, I'm not sure if his goal was just sort of to placate me, like pet the kitty, like, you're fine, or if it was just like he was trying to help me with my mental state because I felt overwhelmed by, I have all this stuff going on and I didn't feel listened to, but I knew something was wrong. And so it's amazing to me the number of clients who come to me and they're like, oh my gosh, that's me. Like, I know something is wrong. I know it. And it's showing up as symptoms, but nobody seems to be willing to help me with that or even take me seriously that this is what I'm experiencing. And so the first thing I do is just encourage them. Like, first of all, you're heard. You're not crazy. And I love this when their labs come back, because as a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, I don't guess, I test. So I have the ability to run lab tests. I can run a hormone panel. I can look for markers of oxidative stress and indicators of gut health. I can look at your cortisol circadian rhythm throughout the day. I run a leaky gut test. I run a food sensitivity test. I do an analysis of your metabolic type. I look for GI pathogens on a lab test. After giving you some biofilm disruptors, because GI pathogens are sneaky. They're really good at surviving. They will build a membrane around themselves as a protective barrier. So if you don't break down that cover of their house, that membrane, you could do a stool test that won't pick up the presence of a GI pathogen because you haven't disrupted the biofilm first. You got to do that first. So I'll do that. FDNs don't guess, we test. So when I get a client's labs back and I'm like, girlfriend, you're exhausted because you're literally not producing cortisol. Like, your cortisol levels in your sum is so low that what you're experiencing is the latter stages of dysfunction of the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. You are in full-on metabolic chaos. You're in that stage of dysfunction where your body can no longer effectively adapt to stress. So we've got to design you a protocol that reduces the stress internally and externally, and let's coach up your vital reserve, coach down metabolic chaos. But I tell people, I deal in hope that, first of all, we can fix this. holistically with a multidisciplinary approach. So let's get our minds right because we can fix this. Optimal as possible. Like that's just not like some sort of tagline.
Yeah.
I really believe it. And I impart and try to project that belief on my peeps who are struggling and they feel that despair.
Yeah, Dusty.
Did that
was
answer
saying-
your question? I feel like that was a
no,
little.
no, and I think you might have
Yeah.
answered Dusty's question, but there, you may want to add in because there was a specific thing saying, how do you know what your body needs? Because you were talking, I believe you covered that, but if you want to share any more, because Dusty's specifically asking that, she says, and then another thing she says, quit antidepressant medication. Now we're talking about somebody who is saying, it's time to quit stuff. So what's the transition? So now there's a couple questions here. So now you are finding that after testing, these are the things that are happening. And this happens to me quite often too. And now somebody's taking medicine for something, and it's probably related with, what you said, there's all these different types of medicine. We've all seen them in our family, and maybe we're even taking them. And so how's that play for you when, somebody's like, hey, I don't want to take this, insulin, but my doctor's saying I need to, but I don't want to do it. So Laura, I'm here. Or I want to be off some type of medicine, but the transition seems to be hard, or the doctor's telling me not to do it because you have to go through a transition. So what do you philosophically, or what's your steps that you do to be able to help? This is great discussion because these are the questions people are working through right now.
Right. So first of all, I want to be clear. I'm a health coach. I'm not a medical professional. And so
you got some ideas, my friend.
Yes, right. So I actually don't coach people off medication. Going off medication is a conversation they should have with their physician based on resolution of symptoms and based on their personal choice for how they want to manage their approach to their own well-being.
Mm-hmm.
What I help them with is resolution of symptoms. So that's where I fit into that. These are the things that you might consider having when you're working to get off medication. Pharmaceuticals have side effects, but that's not to say that for some people, they aren't necessary for either a short time or depending on the nature of the dysfunction. What I help people with is the resolution of symptoms that makes it possible for them to consider going off medication. But as a health coach, that's not an area that I operate in because I operate in integrity in all things. And I understand that that's a lane that I don't have the licensure to make recommendations around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting, Laura, because I like that you are speaking to this because people need to know. Like there's some health coaches that slowly, with the partnering of a doctor, slowly bring somebody off medicine. And the way that you test.
I think the key part of that is partnering with the medical professional.
Yep.
So absolutely. And that's what I mean by integrative and multidisciplinary. There's not just one aspect, for sure.
Yep. I love it.
Yeah.
And Dusty said, gotcha. We have a few more people. But sometimes what's wonderful is that make sure you're taking your notes, and we're going to know how you get to connect with Laura also. Laura, was there additional things you wanted to add, or should we go right in there while we're connecting right now with how to be able to meet up with you? If it's connect with you through instant message, or do you have a specific landing page you want them to go to, or a specific group? Where would you like, or do you have a gift? What would you like to do, my friend?
Yeah, so actually a few things to share. I do have a Facebook coaching community in which I post tips and just lifestyle factors that, there are practical action steps that you can take to coach down metabolic chaos and to coach up optimal health and to build health. So I provide those tips in my Facebook community. and it's Strength and Shield Coaching Community. So yeah, I would love for people to join that group and to get those practical action steps that they can take. My website is always a great way to connect with me at strengthandshieldcoaching.com. And then as a gift, I offer a complimentary workshop on metabolic chaos, which I realized as we've been talking, I haven't even defined or fully described metabolic chaos yet. So definitely take advantage of that gift, and come to my complimentary workshop on metabolic chaos, because in that workshop I define it and the physiology of what metabolic chaos really is. And then we go through an analysis of how metabolic chaos is manifesting in your body. And so what are the ways in which that you are experiencing metabolic chaos? Because remember that wellness meter that I talked about, symptoms are here in the middle. And we don't just want to get back to where we're not experiencing symptoms. We want to go all the way over to where we are our best, healthiest, most dynamic, most productive, most authentic, most energetic, like all of the good things. If you're creative, most creative, all of those things that you can experience when you are in a state of proactive, dynamic balance and health building. And that's where I help people get to. So yeah, those three things, but absolutely that is my gift to you, is that complimentary workshop.
How would you like them to connect with you? And I tagged you in here also, so you know exactly where we're going in live, and you can definitely do that. But I would love to hear. So through email, did you say, or how would they be able to connect with you?
I guess I could just give you one. The Facebook community is the best way to receive information. But if they go on my website, and they can, just submit the contact, that's the best way to get through to my email. But certainly email, like I'll write you back. I would love to hear from people. It's the longest email address you've ever heard in your life. But if you're typing, and I don't know if it's because I grew up in the military. I'm a 3rd generation West Point grad. I'm an Army brat. I spent 13 years on active duty. I can't just leave my last name off. Right, I just can't. So I was like, maybe I should make this Laura at strengthandshieldcoaching.com, but I just can't, because what if there's another Laura on my team someday, and then we have Laura 1 and Laura 2? Like, that's not okay. So it's Laura.Mckenna at strengthandshieldcoaching.com, and email me directly, please do.
Yeah, and I won't put it in here because I think I know it, but I want to make sure that you put it in here so there's not 2 in here. But I think I got it, but I'm just going to let you go in there.
Okay.
But it's not that long. It's actually the name of your business, which is great. The Strength and Shield Coaching. I love that. And Christy, if you are ready, there's so many things. As I was going along, and audience, please keep adding in. But what have you been learning through this 45 minutes of Laura just like giving all this good information?
Oh, it's just lovely to hear that there's somebody that first of all just will listen. I think that was one of the things I really heard. It's like, I will listen, and then also I will do the work to help you discover this, so I just love that. And then so many things, I even have a wellness section in my book, and because our health is a reflection of our belief systems, and that was huge. And it's it's exactly where it comes from. So it's like it's right on. So I think people should really reach out to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then Christy, I don't know if you got any hits on just what you were learning about what Laura was saying. And for me, okay, so I'm a health coach, but we all learn from each other. It's fabulous. And that's why I love doing this show. So what I got from it is that I want to always be seen and heard. And so when you're going to your doctor and you're feeling like you need to be your advocate, that is essential.
Yeah.
Because you can get on medicine And Laura, where were you when I was 29 going on thyroid medicine?
I'll tell you, my doctors did not appreciate it when I pushed back. And that, so to be clear, I have total respect for medical professionals. My mom is a nurse. My grandmother is a nurse, or was a nurse. So I have tremendous respect for medical professionals. But when I have an acute issue, I want a medical doctor. When I fall out of a tree I'm climbing and I break my arm, when I'm attacked by a shark, which pretty much never happens, by the way.
I love this.
People are killed by hippos every year than they are by sharks. Okay. I actually love sharks, but it's it's just these, acute issues. If I'm in a car accident or, whatever, if I fall while I'm doing yard work and I step on the rake and it comes up and it hits me in the head, like I want a medical professional for an acute issue. But for these chronic issues, they are related to underlying stressors. Otherwise, they wouldn't be chronic. So we've got to get to those hidden stressors. Bind in a mind, body, spirit approach that looks at both external and internal sources of stress. And medical professionals are just, that's not their jam. And that's cool because it's mine. And I want to help people do it. Like I'm convinced this is the reason I was put on earth. This is my purpose. I want to help people show up in their lives as their best, healthiest selves.
That's your masterpiece. Absolutely. Yeah. And I love my doctor, my medical doctor. She's like, I can only do these medical kind of things. Keep working with your practitioner. She'll say that to me. So I love that and I chose her because she was open-minded to that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then that's important too, huh? To be able to find somebody that fits you. So if you're feeling, sorry about that, ladies. If you are feeling that that you're not being seen and heard, there's so many wonderful people out there to take care of you, because it's definitely a partner space. And when you're feeling that you are having some gut stuff, but everything's normal. And this is what I love, Laura, and I bet you love on this too. When your doctor says there's nothing wrong, isn't that exciting? Because what that means is that you're not in the sick area, in the medical world. So now my body's not hurt or getting hurt, but I feel hurt. Like this is like, oh my gosh, my lining in my stomach is hurting. And this is the opportunity where we get the chance to be able to start healing things before it gets into a space where the doctor says, all right, now you're sick, now I see it. And that's when I love people coming to me. Because it used to scare me at first when people would say, the doctor's saying there's nothing wrong. I started so many years ago, and I have 10 minutes of energy pretty much all day, and the doctor can't find anything. And it used to scare the heck out of me when I first started.
Oh, no, I love that when people come with that. Yeah, because that tells me on that wellness meter where they are. If they're like right here where they're experiencing symptoms, they're tending toward disease. That's the zone where I really want to help people. And I know that's your heart as well, Rhonda, and I think that's the difference between sickness care and wellness care.
Mm-hmm.
We don't just want to work at the symptom level. We don't just want to resolve the sickness. We want to build health. And I think there's a fundamental difference between those two approaches to health.
Yeah. And Dusty added in, alternative healing is awesome. I know it's really scary when you hear you have to take medicine, you have to. And I love the pushback that you were talking about, like, hold the scapula. and see, everybody, that's where you get
the scapula experience. Yeah.
Back away from the scapula.
And that was how I felt. I was like, whoa.
I bet.
Yeah. Right? It's not even uterine cancer yet. We're like, on the different phases, like if you do like a skin or a tissue biopsy.
Yeah.
So on the tissue biopsy, like there's the scale of like 1 to 5 of abnormality. 5 is cancer. Well, I was at a 4. And so he was like, let's take your uterus out. And I was like, I mean, I don't plan to use it again, but I understand that my body's a system of systems. And if we offset one of the systems, there will be no balance. There can be no dynamic homeostasis if one of the systems is not awesome. And I love for all my systems to be awesome. And I love for other people's systems to all be awesome. So I was like, slow down, put it down.
Fresh